On June 18th, 2024, Nvidia became the most valuable company on Earth. Not Apple, not Microsoft, not Google, Nvidia. Its market value hit a staggering $3.34 trillion, briefly making it the biggest company in the world. Now, that number is so absurdly large that it's hard to picture. So here's some perspective. The Pokemon franchise, the highest-grossing media franchise ever created, could have been bought by Nvidia roughly 36 times over, which is absolutely crazy. We're talking about a company that overtook Apple. You know, the company that somehow managed to sell smartphones to what feels like the entire world. You don't beat that just by making graphics cards for gamers. So that's what makes everyone think. What on earth did Nvidia do to get themselves into a position where they could even dream of overtaking the biggest companies in the world? And more importantly, how did they actually manage to do all this and pull it off? And that's where things get weird. And that's not even the weirdest comparison. At $3.34 trillion, Nvidia was worth more than the entire GDP of many countries. Think about that for a second. Countries where millions of people work every day. Countries have governments, armies, infrastructure. Millions of people working every day and entire economies producing goods and services. Nvidia sells chips. Very, very good chips, admittedly. But still, if you had gone back to the early 2000s and told someone that the graphics card company gamers argued about on internet forums would one day be worth more than most nations, they probably would have assumed you'd spent too much time staring at a CRT monitor. Yet here we are, and somehow, the craziest part is that Nvidia didn't stumble into this position by accident. A lot of what happened was the result of decisions made years, sometimes decades, before anyone else realized how important they would become. Before becoming one of the most influential figures in tech, Jensen worked as a busboy's assistant at a local Denny's diner. It's honestly one of those startup stories that sounds made up. Some of the biggest companies in history started in garages. Apple had a garage, Amazon had a garage, Google had a garage. Nvidia looked at all of that and said, "How about pancakes?" Imagine being the Denny's employee serving that table. 3 engineers are sitting there discussing computer architecture, future technology, and building a company that will one day be worth trillions of dollars. Meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out who ordered the Grand Slam breakfast. What's fascinating is that nobody at that table could have predicted what Nvidia would eventually become. The original goal wasn't to dominate artificial intelligence. AI wasn't even remotely close to where it is today. They were simply trying to solve a difficult computing problem and build better hardware. Sometimes the biggest revolutions start with people solving problems that seem surprisingly small at the time. Something else that stands out is the fact that Nvidia comes from the Latin word invidia, which in Roman mythology, Nvidia was the goddess of enviare, envy. Not the coolest thing, but the name sure was sick. That's when Nvidia released the GeForce 256, the first chip ever marketed as a graphics processing unit, or GPU. Today, that sounds completely normal. Back then, it was revolutionary. A simple way to think about it is this. Imagine a CPU is like one incredibly talented chef working alone in a kitchen. They're fast, efficient, and can make almost anything, but they're still just one person. Now imagine a GPU. Instead of one chef, you've got thousands of cooks all working at the same time. One chops vegetables, one prepares sauce, one cooks pasta, one plates food. And before the CPU chef has finished a single giant order, the GPU kitchen has already served half the restaurant. Okay, maybe that's not exactly how computer architecture works. If you're a computer engineer watching this right now, please lower the pitchfork. But it's close enough for the rest of us to get a little hint. The point is that Nvidia realized some computing problems become dramatically easier when lots of processors work together instead of one processor doing everything alone. Kind of like multiple people working to clean a house than a single person alone. That idea turned out to be much bigger than gaming. In 2006, Nvidia launched something called CUDA, short for Compute Unified Device Architecture. Not the catchiest name ever invented, but it turned out to be one of the smartest moves in the company's history. CUDA allowed developers to use Nvidia GPUs for much more than graphics. Tasks that would normally be processed step by step on a CPU could now be split across thousands of GPU cores and completed far faster. And to Nvidia's credit, this wasn't a guaranteed success. Companies launch ambitious software platforms all the time. Most disappear into the technology equivalent of a forgotten gym membership. CUDA could have easily become one of those projects. Instead, developers loved it. The more developers used it, the more useful it became. The more useful it became, the more people bought Nvidia hardware. And the more Nvidia hardware people bought, the more incentive developers had to support CUDA. It created a powerful feedback loop, the kind every technology company dreams about. And once that flywheel started spinning, it became incredibly difficult for competitors to stop it. By the time the AI boom exploded with ChatGPT, Gemini, and every other AI tool suddenly appearing overnight, Nvidia was already sitting at the center of the entire industry. Everyone else was rushing to join the gold rush. Nvidia was selling the picks and shovels. What's particularly impressive is how long Nvidia had to wait for this bet to pay off. Today, everyone talks about AI, but the scene is pretty messy. And if you want to know just how much power Nvidia has on the entire planet, Jensen Huang went on a massive global press tour and casually announced that there is a global microchip and memory shortage, and that it is going to last for several years. He basically looked at all the richest companies in the world and said, "Yeah, I know you have hundreds of $billions, but you're going to have to wait in line like everyone else." Companies are literally fighting each other for Nvidia's leftovers. It's in news headlines. It's in business presentations. It's in smartphone advertisements. It's somehow even in refrigerators now. But for years, Nvidia kept investing in AI-related technology while most people barely paid attention. There wasn't a huge crowd cheering them on. There wasn't a guarantee of success. They just believed that powerful computing would become increasingly important, and eventually, the rest of the world caught up. Which is a good reminder that some of the biggest business wins don't happen because companies react quickly. They happen because companies see something coming long before everyone else does. Of course, seeing the future is useful. Actually being right about it is the difficult part. Fortunately for Nvidia, they were very, very right. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and smash the subscribe button and drop a comment